The Beatles are a band like no other, from their groundbreaking music to their cultural impact. Their story is legendary. But beyond John, Paul, George, and Ringo, there's a fascinating, often debated, and sometimes downright hilarious question that's lingered for decades. Who exactly is the fifth Beatle? Today, we're embarking on an epic journey to unmask every single person who has ever been seriously, or even comically, thrown into the mix for this coveted, unofficial title. So, let's dive deep into the ultimate fifth Beatle debate. Number 1. Stuart Sutcliffe. Stuart Sutcliffe, a close friend of John Lennon from art school, was the original bassist for the Beatles from May 1960 to July 1961. He joined the band after winning a prize for his painting, which Lennon and Paul McCartney encouraged him to use to buy a bass guitar. During his time with the band, Sutcliffe was often a figure of style, and he, along with his girlfriend Astrid Kircher, is credited with influencing the band's famous mop-top haircuts and overall aesthetic. Sutcliffe played bass on 3 songs recorded in 1960 that were later released on the compilation album Anthology, including Hallelujah, I Love Her So. After leaving the Beatles, Sutcliffe chose to stay in Hamburg to pursue his passion for art. He was a promising painter in the abstract expressionist style. He tragically died from a brain hemorrhage on April 10, 1962, at the age of 21. Number 2. Tommy Moore. Tommy Moore was the second of the band's temporary drummers, joining the Beatles from May to June 1960. During this time, the band was still known as the Silver Beatles. He toured with them as the backing band for singer Johnny Gentle in Scotland, and his departure was abrupt. Unfortunately, no recordings of the Beatles with Tommy Moore on drums are known to exist. After leaving the Beatles, Moore returned to his work as a factory worker in Liverpool and left the music industry. Tommy Moore passed away from a brain hemorrhage in 1981. He was 50 at the time of his passing. Number 3. Norman Chapman. Norman Chapman was the drummer for the Beatles for a very brief period in June 1960. He was a temporary replacement after their previous drummer, Tommy Moore, had left. He played only 3 shows with the group before he was called up for national service and had to leave the band. Norman Chapman passed away in 1995. Number 4. Klaus Voormann. Klaus Voormann, a German artist and musician, was a close friend of the Beatles, dating back to their early days in Hamburg in 1960. Voormann is sometimes referred to as the fifth Beatle due to his deep and lasting personal and creative connection to the members. Voormann designed the iconic Grammy-winning album cover for Revolver, which is one of the most celebrated album covers in rock history. After the Beatles disbanded, Voormann became a highly sought-after session bassist, playing on numerous solo albums for John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, including classics like Imagine, All Things Must Pass, and Ringo. He also designed the artwork for the Beatles Anthology album series in the 1990s. Number 5. Pete Best. Pete Best was the drummer for the Beatles from August 1960 to August 1962. He joined the band shortly before their first residency in Hamburg, Germany. Best played drums for the Beatles on what would later be released as the Decca audition tapes. Decca made the biggest mistake in music history when they declined to sign the Beatles, and Best was dismissed from the band, with Ringo Starr replacing him. After his time with the Beatles, Best continued to pursue a music career with various groups, including Lee Curtis and the All-Stars and the Pete Best Combo, where he recorded the song Boys that was later a hit for the Beatles, with Ringo Starr on lead vocals. Pete Best's post-Beatles musical career was not commercially successful. However, Best received a substantial payout in the 1990s from royalties for his drumming on tracks included in the Beatles Anthology album series. Number 6. Tony Sheridan. Tony Sheridan was a British rock and roll singer and guitarist who collaborated with the Beatles in Hamburg, Germany. He worked with them during a studio recording session on June 22, 1961, where the Beatles served as Sheridan's backing band for all the songs recorded. The song most associated with Tony Sheridan's recording session with the Beatles is My Bonnie. After his collaborations with the Beatles, Tony Sheridan continued to have a music career primarily in Germany, but struggled to achieve mainstream success. Tony Sheridan passed away on February 16, 2013 in Hamburg, Germany. Number 7. Chas Newby. Chas Newby was a temporary bassist for the Beatles, filling in for Stuart Sutcliffe, who had stayed in Hamburg to pursue his art career. Newby's time with the band was very brief, spanning only 4 shows in December of 1960. While Newby was technically a member of the group, his tenure was too short to warrant the distinction. After leaving the Beatles, Newby chose to return to his university studies, becoming a mathematics teacher at a high school in Droitwich Spa, England. Chas Newby passed away in 2023. Number 8. Brian Epstein. Brian Epstein was the manager of the Beatles, who is widely credited with transforming the band from a scruffy club act into a globally polished and commercially successful group, trading their leather jackets for matching suits, and enforced a professional demeanor on stage. Brian Epstein is perhaps the most common and widely accepted person to be called the Fifth Beatle. His managerial skill and vision were crucial to the band's rise to international stardom and their ability to sustain it. He was the one who tirelessly promoted the band and handled all their business dealings, allowing the members to focus on their creative work. Brian Epstein tragically died from a drug overdose in August 1967, at the age of 32. Number 9. Neil Aspinall. Neil Aspinall, a childhood friend of Paul McCartney and George Harrison, worked with the Beatles from 1961 until 2007. His role evolved over the years, starting as a road manager and personal assistant, and culminating in his position as the CEO of Apple Corps Limited, the band's multimedia company. Aspinall is often called the Fifth Beatle due to his intimate involvement in nearly every aspect of the band's professional and personal lives. After his long career with the Beatles organization, he retired from Apple Corps in 2007. Neil Aspinall passed away in 2008. He was 66 years old. Number 10. George Martin. George Martin was the renowned record producer for the Beatles. He began working with the band on June 6, 1962, after signing them to EMI's Parlophone Records. Often referred to as the Fifth Beatle, Martin's formal musical expertise was instrumental in shaping the Beatles' sound throughout their career. He worked with them on nearly all of their albums, with their last collaborative work resulting in the 1969 album Abbey Road. Martin is most famously associated with his innovative arrangements and studio techniques on Beatles songs like Eleanor Rigby, where he composed and arranged the string octet, giving the song its distinctive and melancholic feel. Ah, look at all the lovely people. After the Beatles, Martin continued as a producer for Jeff Beck, America, Cheap Trick, Paul McCartney's solo work, and the Beatles Anthology. George Martin died on March 8, 2016, at age 90. Number 11. Jimmy Tarbuck. Jimmy Tarbuck, a British comedian, is sometimes called the Fifth Beatle due to a number of cultural connections that placed him in the band's orbit during the 1960s. Raised in Liverpool, Tarbuck attended the same primary school as John Lennon. As Beatlemania took hold, Tarbuck also rose to national stardom on television, sharing a similar youthful, Scouse persona. He often sported a similar mop-top hairstyle and dressed in the fashionable style of the day, visually aligning him with the band and making him, in a way, the comedic equivalent of the Fab Four. Number 12. Mal Evans. Mal Evans served as the Beatles' road manager and personal assistant from 1963 until their breakup in 1970. His duties went far beyond a typical roadie, as he became an indispensable part of the band's inner circle, a constant presence during their touring years and recording sessions. Mal Evans is often called the Fifth Beatle due to his intimate involvement in nearly every aspect of the band's career. After the Beatles disbanded, Evans continued to work with the individual members on their solo projects until his death in 1976. Number 13. Derek Taylor. Derek Taylor was the press officer for the Beatles, a role he held during two key periods, first in 1964 during the peak of Beatlemania, and again from 1968 to 1970 as the press officer for Apple Corps. Taylor is often considered the fifth Beatle due to his deep and lasting personal relationships with the band members and his crucial role in managing their public image and media relations. George Harrison, in particular, referred to Derek Taylor and Neil Aspinall as the only true fifth Beatles. After leaving the Beatles organization in 1970, he worked for Warner Brothers Records and George Harrison's Handmade Films before returning to Apple Corps in the 1990s to manage their legacy projects. Derek Taylor died on September 8, 1997. Number 14. Murray the K. Kaufman. Murray the K. Kaufman was a highly influential American rock and roll DJ. He is sometimes called the Fifth Beatle due to his role in introducing the band to a massive American audience and his close, personal relationship with them during the height of Beatlemania. During the band's first visit to America, in February 1964, Murray the K stayed with the band at the Plaza Hotel, where he interviewed the band and broadcast live from their suite. Number 15. Vince Calandra. Vince Calandra's association with the Beatles was during their landmark first appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show. He was the talent coordinator for the show, who acted as a stand-in for a sick George Harrison. During the dress rehearsals on February 8, 1964, the day before the live broadcast. Number 16. Jimmy Nicol. Jimmy Nicol was a temporary drummer for the Beatles, filling in for Ringo Starr, who had been hospitalized with tonsillitis. His time with the band was very brief, lasting from June 4th to June 13th, 1964. During this 10-day period, he played 8 concerts on the band's tour of Scandinavia, the Netherlands, Hong Kong, and Australia. Jimmy Nicol is sometimes called the Fifth Beatle because he was the only musician to formally stand in for a member of the band during the height of their fame. He was thrown into the global spotlight, experiencing a level of fame that no other temporary member did. Unfortunately, there are no known official studio recordings of the Beatles with Jimmy Nicol on drums. After his very brief time with the Beatles, Nicol struggled to parlay his newfound fame into a lasting music career. By the 1970s, he became a very private person and largely vanished from the public eye. Number 17. George Best. George Best, the legendary Manchester United footballer, is sometimes called the Fifth Beatle not because of any direct musical collaboration, but because of his parallel rise to global fame. This nickname originated in 1966 after a standout performance for Manchester United in Lisbon. The Portuguese press, captivated by his good looks, celebrity status, and mop-top haircut, dubbed him O Quinto Beatle, the Fifth Beatle. He was one of the first footballers to become a genuine pop star, with a lifestyle that included fashion boutiques, nightclubs, and a playboy reputation. His long hair and rebellious style were seen as a symbol of a youth culture revolution, mirroring the influence the Beatles had on music, fashion, and society. Number 18. Yoko Ono. Yoko Ono met John Lennon in November 1966 at her art exhibition in London. They became a couple in 1968 and married on March 20th, 1969. Ono is sometimes called the Fifth Beatle due to her constant presence at John Lennon's side. Ono's direct contribution to Beatles songs is most notable on the White Album, where she contributed vocals to the continuing story of Bungalow Bill.
Hey, Bungalow Bill, what did you kill? Bungalow Bill.
After the Beatles broke up, Ono continued to collaborate with Lennon on music, art, and peace activism under the name Plastic Ono Band. Yoko Ono has managed Lennon's musical legacy and business affairs since his death on December 8, 1980. Number 19. Harry Nilsson. Harry Nilsson is sometimes called the Fifth Beatle due to a profound friendship and mutual admiration he shared with members of the band, particularly John Lennon and Ringo Starr. The connection began in 1968 when the Beatles, at a press conference, were asked to name their favorite American group. They all famously replied, Nilsson. This public endorsement catapulted Harry Nilsson into a new level of fame and brought him into their inner circle, where he became a close collaborator with both John Lennon and Ringo Starr on various projects. Ringo Starr served as the best man for Harry Nilsson at his 1976 wedding to Una O'Keeffe. Starr and Nilsson starred together in the cult horror film, The Son of Dracula, that spawned the single Daybreak.
Here come the daybreak, it's bringing me pain, it's causing me heartache.
However, his closest association was with John Lennon during what has been dubbed the Lost Weekend, an 18-month period from late 1973 to early 1975. John Lennon disastrously produced Nilsson's 1974 album, Pussycats, that featured the single Subterranean Homesick Blues. Because of the highly publicized nature of their relationship, the Lennon-Nilsson friendship is one of the most famous in rock history. Harry Nilsson passed away on January 15, 1994, at the age of 52. Number 20. Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton's collaboration with the Beatles was brief and occurred in the studio, as he was never a member of the band. His most famous contribution was on September 6, 1968, when he played lead guitar on the song, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, at George Harrison's invitation. Clapton was a close friend and frequent collaborator with George Harrison, playing on many of his solo albums, and also performing at his tribute concert alongside Danny Harrison, Ringo Starr, and Paul McCartney. Number 21. Billy Preston. Billy Preston was an American musician and keyboardist who collaborated with the Beatles during a tumultuous period for the band. He was invited by George Harrison to sit in with the band, and his positive and professional presence reportedly helped to ease tensions among the band members. He contributed organ and electric piano to several songs on the Let It Be album, including Let It Be and Don't Let Me Down, and to tracks on the Abbey Road album, such as Something and I Want You She's So Heavy. However, Preston is most famously associated with the song I've Got a Feeling for his powerful keyboards. After his work with the Beatles, Billy Preston had a highly successful solo recording career until he died on June 6, 2006, at the age of 59. Number 22. The Volkswagen Beetle on the cover of Abbey Road. The white Volkswagen Beetle on the cover of the Beatles' Abbey Road album is referred to as the Fifth Beatle due to its prominent placement in the iconic photograph. The car, which was parked on the street by an unknown owner, happened to be in the background of the shot. Its position and color make it a highly visible and enduring element of the album cover. The Volkswagen Beetle became a central feature of the famous photograph, almost like a fifth character in the scene. Number 23. Clarence Walker. In a Saturday Night Live sketch that aired on February 11, 1984, Eddie Murphy played a fictional character named Clarence Walker. In the sketch, Walker is introduced as the forgotten fifth member of the Beatles, but his supposed contributions are absurd and out of place. He claims to have been the original lead singer on early songs, before being kicked out of the band by the other members in 1963. The sketch parodies the many people who have been given or have claimed the title of the Fifth Beatle, and it plays on the racial and cultural differences between Walker and the actual members of the band. Number 24. Apu Nahasipima Petalan. In The Simpsons episode Lisa the Vegetarian, that aired on October 15, 1995, Paul and Linda McCartney make a guest appearance. Paul McCartney explains that they met Apu in India years ago, during the Maharishi days. Apu then adds, "Back then, I was known as the Fifth Beatle." Paul and Linda exchange a knowing look and sarcastically reply, "Sure you were, Apu." The joke parodies the long list of people who have claimed or have been given the informal title of the Fifth Beatle. So, there you have it, our deep dive into the lives, legends, and legacies of everyone who has ever held the title of the Fifth Beatle. From friends and pretenders to contenders and members. What are your thoughts on the 24 members of the Fifth Beatle Club on our list? Share your thoughts in the section below. Please like and subscribe for more exciting features on your favorite artists. And you can watch this additional informative video from What's the Story right now.